Good morning, everyone. It's 9 o'clock on November 1st, 2022. We will call the Wright County Board of Commissioners meeting to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Welcome, everyone. Good to see you here. Our first order of business, the minutes. Does anyone have any corrections to the minutes?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
Motion made by Commissioner Delyden, seconded by Commissioner Wetter. Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Minutes are approved. Review and approval of agenda. Is there anything that needs to be removed or added? Administrator Kelly.
I have nothing to add or remove.
All right.
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion to approve today's agenda as presented.
I'll second it.
Motion made by Commissioner Vesh, seconded by Commissioner Delyden. Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
All right. The agenda is approved. Consent agenda. Is there anything anyone would like to remove for further discussion?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second.
All right, motion made by Commissioner Delyden, seconded by Commissioner Ketchmark. Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, consent agenda is approved. Our first timed item is at 9:30, so we'll go ahead and move on to items for consideration. Administration.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We had discussed previously in scheduling a meeting with our legislators, had reached out to those, and it appears that November 28th at 1 p.m. would be the recommended date and time. So would like to set the meeting for that date and time.
All right,
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion to set the legislative meeting for November 28th at 1 o'clock here at the Government Center.
all right. Motion made by Commissioner Vetch. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Commissioner Wetter. Any discussion?
Just, Madam Chair, have spoken with departments that are submitting their items, which we'll bring forward for discussion at the workshop. Of course, we are going to get a few new legislators as well, so as soon as they are elected, we'll notify them of the date and time.
Okay, good. Yeah, that's always a good discussion day. All right. Any more discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, that motion passes. Meeting is scheduled. And next item, Minister Kelly.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. To refer to the upcoming workshop next week, thought it would be prudent to give an update on the ARP programs and projects as that's been progressing along. Also, we have a new request that came in regarding water quality improvement grants. So I'd like to discuss that with the board. As I mentioned in the previous item, we would like to discuss the legislative items. And also, as you noted at the last board meeting, we scheduled the public hearing for the fee schedule for later this month on the 29th. I thought it would be prudent. We'll be getting you the full fee schedule here probably today. If you have an opportunity to review and have any questions on the fee schedule, we think it would be good to discuss it at workshop. So,
Yeah, that's a great idea because there's lots of different fees on the schedule. So.
yes, we've
Good
taken a lot of time this time around and made sure we have one format for everything, so it'll be much more user-friendly.
Good.
Any items you'd wish to add? Otherwise, those would be my recommendations for next week.
Madam Chair?
Yes, Mr. Ryan.
I don't know, where are we at with the compost facility? I've forgotten what we've discussed in the past and where we're sitting with that. I'm just wondering if it might not be a bad timing to review that. Not sure.
Okay.
Yeah, we had the one tour. I didn't attend, I couldn't attend that day, but of other facilities, so I don't know if there's, I kind
Yeah,
of want to get into a little depth about that, and
Yeah, I don't.
certainly nothing's happening, probably nothing.
No, well, we're
But
around,
it's
but
good.
still.
Right, but it's good to keep it on the radar.
Sure, we can discuss that. And staff did go and tour a couple facilities
Chair,
a while
Madam
back.
speak
So
a few things.
Mark's probably
Here's a Assistant
Madam Chair,
Administrator
yes, we
Tice.
we can refer that to workshop. We did go on a facilities tour. Jacob, like, starts with W. Wagaman, has started. Been some changes out there. You'll see an update in the fee schedule. Right now, we are working through developing the operations plans, what is existing, what we want to do, how we want to move forward so that we can look at facility design and placement. But we need to do an operations plan, which is existing, and what our goals are, and then what our future lookout is, so that we can design a facility that fits into that space that's appropriate for now and into tomorrow. So that's where we're at, but those items can be, and we can get into more detail at the workshop if you'd like.
Yeah, it'd
Yeah.
be interesting to find out what the plans are for the future and
I
stuff.
agree. And, you know, some of the just discussion in the past is that whatever we do, it doesn't necessarily gonna happen like in one shot. It might be a phased thing too, so. Those are
Chair.
things that are good to have a discussion about. Yeah, Commissioner Ketchmark?
Thank you. When we scheduled that field trip for those other facilities and the commissioners said, oh, we can't make it, I thought the whole field trip was going to be canceled, and I didn't realize till after that the staff went. So, I mean, you went and that's fine, but I'd say maybe we should look at after the first of the year when we've got the different cast of characters up here that we would reschedule for all of us to go and take a look at the proper time.
Yeah.
I just didn't want you to feel that we didn't have interest in the deal and we missed out. I think that would be relevant for next year.
Madam Chair, Commissioner Ketchmark, we did go. It was actually a great field trip for staff to be on, because rather than all facility design conversation, we got into a lot of operations conversation. How do you do that? How do you source this? Where do you source that? So we got a lot of that kind of made us think, you know, let's plan our process before we plan our tool. So once we get that down and we get the operations of where we want to go, I think it'd be great then to bring the new cast of characters. Is that what you say?
I like that term. I'm glad he used it for the future
I-
characters and not the existing ones.
I think it should just be updated cast of characters.
Well, I'm one of them, so I figure I'm free to speak that way.
So maybe then look at, okay, what facilities have what we're looking for, and then try to get out and do more of the facility design type tours rather than the operational type tours would be a good idea.
Thank you.
Yeah, and that's a great way to bring the new people on, you know, to get them kind of a little more up to speed, because we've had a great deal of discussion about this in the last couple of years, so that'd be good.
Yeah,
So-
and one other thing regarding that is there other stuff out there that we've gotten rid of since then, or are we looking to get rid of, or how's that all going? So
There have been some,
you
yeah.
can-
Gary?
You want to leave that for the workshop, or do you want a quick update?
Well, I suppose a quick update. doesn't
Sure, we
hurt.
got plenty of time.
Yeah, we've got
Most-
22 minutes.
I think most everything that was going to get sold on auction has been sold. There's still items that haven't been picked up. The scale is still out there. That sold for $1. So whether that actually, I don't know what the process is there if they don't come pick it up. I believe the Zerk is still in a few pieces, and the scrap metal, our staff have been taking apart, putting in the scrap metal bin, which gets picked up weekly or bi-weekly. Actually, we just got them an impact wrench so they can continue working on that on their off days when they don't have packing to do. So they just about have it disassembled and gotten rid of. So most everything that was set to be gone is gone, except for the two larger items that people have to come in and take apart to get out. Those are still there.
Okay.
The scrap metal, I'm assuming we get some money for that, what little it is.
Yes, we do get the recycling amount when the scrap metal gets dropped off. So we do get reimbursed for the scrap metal.
Good.
Yeah.
Thank you for the
Yep.
update.
All right, well, that'll be a good thing to have for a deeper discussion next Tuesday. All right, moving on to committee minutes. Commissioner Wetter, the ditch committee of the whole.
Oops, let me get to that. Okay, well, that was on October 25th, and all the commissioners were there except for Commissioner Vetch. There were a number of other staff and people from the public also attending. And the reason for this was the redetermination of the benefits for County Ditch number 13. And it was a public hearing, and this was for the benefits and the damages on again, the Wright County Ditch 13. And the purpose of the hearing was to review the viewer's report and receive comment from those affected. And at the end, also and during, commissioners could ask questions to just clarify anything that got said, either from the comments of the public or of the viewers. Assistant County Attorney John Bowen provided a little background. This ditch 13 is located in Buffalo Township, and the drainage area is mainly developed and guided for agricultural use. Okay, the Drainage Authority initiated proceedings to redetermine the benefits and damages over the system. That went back to July 26th of 2016, when that actually was initiated by the Drainage Authority, which is the county commissioners. President of the Viewers Association, Ron Rehnquist, gave an overview of the viewers report and introduced his colleagues who were also present. The report was submitted, the new report was submitted on September 8th and had updated numbers to account for current values and inflation. The benefit would not go back to the original intended classification of agriculture, but had 4 new classifications. And let's see, also the roads were also a separate entity that was also added to those benefits. Then there was public comment, and several people talked about different things that were happening on their property. As a result, the recommendation was to direct staff to prepare an order on the redetermination of benefits and damages of the public drainage system consistent with the viewer's report, the public hearing comments and guidance from the board, and move to a special public hearing on Tuesday, November 15th, at which time the board will continue the public hearing for the purpose of considering and adopting an order. That ends my report.
All right, is
Gotta
there
make a motion.
motion
And I'll make the motion to approve the minutes as written
and recommendation?
and the recommendation. Thank you. I always forget that.
All right,
I'll second it.
motion made by Commissioner Wetter, seconded by Commissioner Blyden to accept the minutes and the recommendation. Any more discussion?
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Ketchmark?
Thank you. So I had seen some aerial photographs of this project that included a flooded building around the body of water, and I thought that this process was going to help resolve that. Turns out it isn't, so I talked to our drainage coordinator, and there's a process that goes back to about 2003 that hasn't been resolved. So I've urged them to continue with the DNR for the permitting process so that that continues. And we heard about the tile that's like 6 feet out of level or out of
Well,
center.
No, it's down and about 6 feet. So we were out there and they found it. But to get the DNR was there and they saw it. So to get the DNR to agree, yes, this original tile is there, and because it's broken, that's it encourages flooding of that area, but it's deemed wetland now, so that's the issue.
So hopefully, if we do our part with this process, we can point to the DNR and whoever else is concerned and say, we did our part, we took it to this point, but it needs more, that will help our case to finish this off, because it just, I don't want to settle for the flooded building with all this work coming to a point, and then it seems like there's some unresolved yet, so we're going to continue that effort with
There
the,
is, and the affected property owners of that property, they're happy with the new redetermination of benefits because that will help them with the other issues, so yes, they would like that resolved also, but this is a good first step. So,
okay, thank you.
any other discussion?
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Wetter?
that will be interesting because what with wetland laws the way they are now, since it's created a wetland, they've got both things interfering with each other, so that should be interesting. I don't know if Mr. Kreiser would want to speak to that or not? Or is it not a valid thing to talk about right now?
I think we could talk about it at another committee meeting, maybe.
Okay.
It'd probably be more appropriate, Commissioner Winter.
Okay, thank you.
All right. There's no other discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
All right. Minutes and recommendation are approved. All right, the Personnel Committee, Commissioner Vetch.
So the discussion on that personnel meeting was regarding the centralization of IT and the IT staff within HHS and bringing them into centralized IT. Administration, along with help from the projects group, had done a collection of data and workflow processes that came up to the recommendation to open 2 TSS positions in IT for internal applicants first, to dissolve 2 of the ISS positions within HHS technology, and have 3 ISS positions, job titles changed to business technologists to remain in HHS technology division, to change the name of the technology coordinator to a business project coordinator, and keep the pay, the wage grade, page
Yeah,
grade
there's a little
typo,
yeah.
yeah, the same, and opening the position up to applicants. If any of the 3 business technologist positions are vacated in the future, there are reconsideration of refilling the position would go back to the Personnel Committee for review. So just for clarification, a lot of the name changes have to go with the best practice of what other Health and Human Services call these type of positions, because they're not really traditionally what we would call IT type users. They're more specialized to the business processes within Health and Human Services, and trying to make it more holistic with the practice of other Health and Human Services across the county, which may help us be able to get more applicants when posting these positions, because it'll be a familiar title that they would be applying for. But most of it's, all the positionings are linear changes, other than the TSS position change from the ISS is a potential 1 grade up. Is that correct? Yeah. So depending on where they're at, there could be a minimal change to that. But there is a large amount of workflow savings in this change. So with that, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes and the recommendation.
All right, motion made by Commissioner Vetch. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Commissioner Wetter. Discussion?
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Ketchmark?
I just want to acknowledge and thank the commissioners that sat in on this, because looking this over, and even Commissioner Vetch was there, it looks like it was basically like a word salad of titles to try and interpret. But I appreciate it's a slight change in language from the past about opening it up and not making automatic shape-shifting of people and positions. I think that's a positive change, and so thanks for working through it and bringing us something that we can work with. I did a little research just for clarification in my own mind. What are the grades changing and all that? But it makes sense to me, so thank you.
To that point, I think we talked through it maybe 5-6 times on what the recommendation was, and so everybody in the room was on the same consensus. Because when you take all these job titles and changing around, your head kind of goes, okay, what did we just do?
And Madam Chair,
Yeah, Commissioner Wetter.
I'd like to reiterate what Commissioner Catchmark said, because in reading this, I really didn't know what was going on. And so I liked his more, what you would say, common language on what actually happened.
The condensed version.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so thank you.
yeah, I also have read minutes about 3 times, just
And
make
it
sure it was
stretched
clear in
my
my
head.
mind, but, so, yeah, we certainly have had to make some changes with this move, and it's good to get things running more efficiently and for positions to fit the needs that we have.
Madam Chair, just to make sure that the spelling gets corrected in the minutes.
The page wage.
Do you have that correction? Okay.
Okay, he's nodding.
All right. If there's no other discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Motion passes 5-0. All right, we still have 9 minutes before a public hearing, so let's move on to advisory committee, advisory board updates. And Administrator Kelly, would you like to?
Sure. Just a big amount of time right now taken. We're in union negotiations with our 7 groups, so had meetings yesterday. We'll have meetings continuing throughout the week and upcoming weeks regarding that. Yesterday was able to stop in and check on the public accuracy testing. It was nice. Mr. Simon stopped by our facility and was checking that out as well. So all things went well there. A reminder again, ERP go live for staff is next week, Monday the 7th. So things are progressing on towards that, and we're wrapping up training regarding that. One other thing I should mention, it was raised at our AMC District 5 about the green light for veterans, lighting up your facility is in green for the week of the 7th through the 11th. I've been working with facility staff. We're going to try and do some green lights around
good.
for that week in honor of our veterans. So
Yeah, wonderful.
Great.
that's what I have.
Commissioner Catchmark.
Oh, thank you, Madam Chair. I didn't have any, I'll call it sanctioned meetings, but I had some meetings with townships and cities to talk about specific items to their communities related to roads and that kind of thing. So that's all I have.
Yeah, Commissioner Wyden.
I was under the weather last week, so I really didn't have anything.
All right. Yeah, I, aside from, some preparation meetings with folks for upcoming meetings and a couple of other things, I didn't have any other scheduled meetings, so just worked out that way. Commissioner Vetch?
I had a number of meetings last week. So the energy transition was kind of the first one last week, kind of came to a close last week on Tuesday, hence the reason that missing the
Yep.
Ditch Committee of the whole.
Ditch Committee.
We adopted the energy transition plan that'll come forward to the governor and the legislator. I'll present more to that here probably in December to you guys and kind of walk you through what we all talked about and what we came back forward with the recommendation. But the biggest recommendation that we had coming forward is that this energy transition group, whether the same or different, will need to be enacted ongoing. Just because a lot of the issues around the closure of these plants is very fluid, and no one plan is going to fix it for each community. So needing this group to be able to be ongoing to make recommendations on a case-by-case basis is going to be very fruitful. The other piece of the discussion was largely around there's going to need to be some sort of transition aid, and whether that comes through county program aid, local government aid, or comes from another pot of money that would need to be done. But the discussion is it necessarily the way LGA is set up right now? It wouldn't be able to work under their formulas, because when the plant would close, it would take almost 2 to 3 years before local government aid would kick back in. But then, because this is such a large amount of money, unless the legislator would infuse more money into local government aid, we would just basically be squeezing the balloon, and you'd be just taking money from a large number of other cities and subplanting it into the closure community. So there has to be multiple different things that need to take place in order for that to be offset. But then there's also the different discussions about the liquidations of the properties and the valuation aspects between the Department of Revenue and how it would change from being a state assessed property, which is done by the state, and would then the process being switched over and being turned over to the local assessor to do the evaluation of the property. Because right now the local assessor is only valuing the dirt, not the actual structures on the property. The structures on the property are being assessed by the state. But when it comes to closure and it no longer produces energy, it actually just transitions over to the local assessor. And it is difficult for local assessors to be able to get comps for that type of property.
Right, oh, man. Yeah, lots of complicated issue there.
There's a lot going on there.
Well, hopefully within, 15 to 20 years, the legislators will get it all figured out.
It'll be interesting. There's a lot of pieces to that puzzle. Central Mississippi Regional Planning Partnership had a meeting last week. We're kind of moving forward. Hopefully have an RFP in the next, hopefully 30 days for our purpose and needs statement. So we'll be hopefully out for solicitation in December, hopefully for that, which is basically our first step to that document would allow us then to enter into the Tier 1 NEPA process for addressing a transportation solution for the region. Then we also, I-94 Coalition is soliciting, putting in a number of applications for the Corridor of Commerce funding, for the gap funding between the Albertville and Monticello. So that's moving forward. Wright County EDP, we had a presentation from Greater MSP and the lack of large lot commercial property that are shovel-ready, that have high electric and high water capacity in our region, even just around the entire metro area. Wright County maybe has one site that meets some of that, but that one's only about a 45 acre site. They're looking for sites that are 50 to 100 acres that are shovel-ready, that have high electric hookup, high water hookup, and have the infrastructure from a transportation perspective relatively in place. There's none of them in our county. If you have one of those, even in the 7 metro area, you will get a number of hits because there's a lot of national companies that are looking for these types of big footprints that they could do constructions for large site development. Then I guess that covers most all of my notes, I guess, so I'll pass after that.
All
I
right.
could have gone on for a few other ones, but
Commissioner Wetter?
Well, about the only thing, I didn't have any meetings per se, except yesterday I did attend the ballot machines and how they worked and the accuracy of the machines, and found it very interesting process. And I did meet the Secretary of State, and that was interesting, and see his entourage that came with him. And I was a little surprised that with all the concern over the machines there wasn't more of a presence of the public there. So a little disappointed in that, but otherwise I feel very good about the way the machines are operating and the accuracy of them.
Yeah, and thank you. I, of course, was there also and was very impressed. And just to watch their, very specific processes and how they're checked, and balances, and, running the, all the different precincts that their test precincts, and running those through the big, I forget the name, DS 450. And then also the ballot, when they're actually feeding the ballots into the individual machines that they have at the precincts, and the double checks, and every ballot, it gets put onto this, I don't know, kind of
A
roll.
multi-feeder,
The feeder,
yeah.
and then they double check all those, and they match, and so it was.
Very
it-
interesting.
Yeah.
And I
Made
guess,
me even more confident, but I understand there was a lot more people at the when they tested it before the primary.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. That's, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess it was good because you could ask questions about
could.
what was going on and stuff, something, you know, that you can't normally do, so.
Right, and the Secretary of State mentioned that he likes to go to the different counties when they're doing their tests, so he can observe and just see, you know, how everything is, and to make sure everything's correct, so. Yeah, it was good, I'm really glad that I went to, so. Well,
Madam Chair, do you
Yes.
know if he left any remarks or anything when he left,
no,
Lee?
I don't know. I haven't had any follow-up, did not hear any commentary, so
Okay,
I was only down for a short period of time, but
yeah. All right,
thank you.
thank you. Well, we are at 9:30 now, at 9:31. So we will open our public hearing for the aggregate removal tax ordinance. Barry, did you have any comments, or Assistant Administrator Matthijs?
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board. We did not receive any written or verbal comments on the ordinance.
All right,
And so today, basically, we've been collecting the gravel tax for quite some time. The ordinance is being updated, basically to deal with the 15% of the abandoned pit definition. We brought this to you at your workshop back in September. Scheduled the public hearing. I do know there's maybe a couple members of interest in the audience with that. So I don't know if there's any specific questions or what you'd like me to do. Was kind of planning that Bob was gonna present today, so.
yeah, he was not able to be here,
Not
so,
feeling real good.
yeah,
So we defined the definitions. This would be ordinance 22-3. Since last week, we adopted 22-2 with solid waste ordinance. So first time we've done multiple things like that. So as far as distribution of funds, 42.5% goes back to the county for road and bridge fund. 42.5% goes to townships that the pits are in for road and bridges there as well. And 15% goes to a special reserve fund for restoration of abandoned pits, quarries, or deposits. A portion can be used for reclamation of unmet needs, for reclamation of resources, those types of things. There's an application process for those funds. That's part of this ordinance and how that would work. There's suggestion to develop a review committee that would make recommendations back to the county board on the use of that 15% funds. And then there's also in your packet a sample audit form that the auditor treasurer Bob would be directed to use on any audits of any pits to make sure that they're reporting properly. This is really mostly handled through the finance department in the collection of and notice of collecting the tax. As far as balance right now, let's see, we are at, I got it right here. Our total cash on hand's about 597,000. That's not all restoration funds. We do have to probably do our quarterly distribution yet from that.
all right.
Did I say that right? Lindsay said I said that right, so I'm happy.
Does anyone on the board have any questions? Assistant Administrator Matthijs, before we open up for public comments?
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Ketchmark?
thank you. This might take care of a public comment or two. This was brought up to me a couple times, and I think I got it straightened out. So Mark talked about the 42.5% that goes back to the city or township where the gravel is mined, and it's for the road maintenance. So it's been pointed out to me that some of the pits, there's a direct haul to our county road, and no trucks have a real need or reason to touch a township road, but because of how the statute's written, they're entitled to and do receive that 42.5% just because it's in their township. And so we don't have the scope up here to change that. That have to be done at the legislature because that's the way the statute is. So I just wanted to clarify that's how it's written and that we can't change it. But it doesn't sound real fair and consistent to the townships that don't have any gravel pits at all, but because you got one in your township, you're entitled to it even though it's all on a county road and it's a county road that needs to be maintained. Then the second thing on page 13, the audit report that Mark's talking about, I would like to see our designee, if it's auditor treasurer, to come up with some type of standard operating procedure on how this audit report will be done legally and randomly, that it doesn't have to be complaint driven or because of suspicion of something, that we could just have something in place that says 1 day a month or something, that our designated person, in case the job changes, would go out and do some random checks, whatever we can legally do. If it's meet the pit owner at the gate and look at what we can look at. And I think there's a place for that besides just having this piece of paper with the blanks on it.
All right. Any other comments? And yes, I have also spoken with people about the fact that gravel trucks are going on their township roads and kind of beating them up. I mean, this is townships that don't have pits, and so it is not, I agree, it's not real fair, but we need to work to change that, so.
Given the constraints that we're at right now, it'll be an ongoing project, I guess, at the state level if we want to be able to see those funds used
Yep, we
differently.
have to keep working on the state.
But I do agree that we have at least a mechanism now to use some of the reserve funds for something, because inherently before, we're just going to continue to grow, and we really had no good plan of action to how to be able to access it or to be able to use it for any type of reclamation, so
Yep.
it's a good step
Agreed,
forward.
agreed.
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Ketchmark?
as far as that review committee, did you want to wait till there was an actual application to form it and pick folks? Or do you want to have people step up for it now?
Madam Chair, and to my understanding, I thought we were going to have like a solicitation time of year, and then that group would meet once a year. That was my understanding. So we haven't, I would assume that we would set that committee in January when we do all of them at that time. And then at that point, that committee would determine when that period of time of solicitation and application review would be. Is that kind of true?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Vetch, that would be I would agree with that recommendation, is to set this committee in January with the new cast of characters. And that way we have the 2 new board members available and look at what type of citizens we have. And then that would be led by, I think we put a May date in, didn't we? We put like a May date in for the review committee and applications.
And, I mean, is it possible that if something came up before that, that you have the review committee, but I don't know if you'd,
Right.
I mean, it would be something that wouldn't necessarily just have to be once a year if something came up?
No, we call out a minimum of once a year.
Okay.
Is what we called out. That way, even if the committee has nothing to do, they can talk about what funds are in there, type of stuff.
All right. Yeah, good. All right.
But as far as Commissioner Ketchmark's thoughts on standard operating procedures with the audit, we didn't want to put the audit stuff within the ordinance because you don't want to name titles and stuff in there as much. So directing Bob to develop his standard operating procedures for the audit and bring that back to you would probably be what you'd like to do.
Okay.
Yeah, Madam Chair,
Yeah,
do we
Commissioner
need to
Ketchmark?
formalize that in some type of recommendation to have that done, or?
Well, first
Well,
off, I got,
we have public hearing first.
Okay,
When we're done with the public hearing, you can make a recommendation if you want.
okay.
All right. Okay, so I will open a hearing up for any public comments. Anyone that would like to speak, please come up to the podium, state your name and your township or address for the record.
Good morning, Dwight Hammer, LBN Township. So, guess we're just kind of got notified of this yesterday that you're having a meeting about this morning. What I've been hearing, the comments kind of sounds like it's way to go. Just kind of curious, maybe why this wasn't discussed at our last quarterly meeting for the township, our district. That way we could probably gave some advice into this with a possible change. I know you commented, Christine, about, townships having gravel trucks running across another township. We got a culvert that basically is huge, that it doesn't meet the state requirements, but it's still in the township requirements to change, and it's gonna cost us a lot of money. And this is from years of being driven over by heavy equipment. That basically it's deformed. And, you know, I can see a lot of townships wanting to say, you know, they should have a share of this gravel tax as well. So that's what I came here to state.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I can't answer why it wasn't brought up at the, you know,
Madam Chair?
I guess we've got so much going on all the time that we don't think about everything we could talk about, for sure, so. Yeah, Commissioner Ketchmark?
Thank you. Thanks for coming in, Dwight. Does Albion get any now? Do you have any pits there?
No,
So you fall under what we just talked
Right.
about in the
Yep.
statute.
Yep, there.
As far as why this wasn't brought up, a past township quarterly meeting is pretty much what initiated this group in the first place. If you remember, when Middleville Township Supervisor called the county out on a park property that had been used to reclaim gravel and spoke to the reclamation funds, what is or what isn't being done, this is what came out of that question, Dwight, which I think was time well spent. So we've been working through it, but when you talk about statutes and you're concerned, whether you knew about this or not at a quarterly meeting, you couldn't have done anything about it, neither could we. We picked just a few things, I'll speak for myself, of things to talk about at a quarterly meeting. And to be honest, sometimes people think that we say too much at the quarterly meeting and potentially like take it over. But from what I see, if we weren't there talking about county things, there isn't a whole lot being talked about. I mean, I'll just say it, I'm there and you're there. So we try and we don't talk over ahead of time what each of us is gonna talk about. But this came from a township quarterly meeting, and I dug into the statute part. You know it now as we know it. It's gotta be changed in St. Paul, if at all. But does that kind of help explain the order here?
I guess what we were just kind of thinking that you know, since it was brought up at a township quarterly meeting, you know, we were kind of hoping it would be a little bit further discussed with us.
Okay.
So that's where I was kind of going with
Okay,
this.
yeah, thank you.
And Madam Chair, just for clarification, because I'm wondering, because this gravel ordinance was probably sent out to all the pits that we have gravel pits, but we probably didn't send notice to all of the townships of this public hearing? Do we, because the ones that don't have pits, I guess I don't know what the notification process, do we send?
Yeah, we have a sample copy of the letter.
I just don't remember. I
sent
didn't
it,
remember
yes.
seeing if they sent it to all the townships or if it was just the ones that had pits.
We did the public notification process, no?
So you did it to all the townships then?
Did we send it to all the township? I know I put it in the paper, put it out on the websites.
Just because I know a lot of times that if it pertains to townships, we send it out for their comment on it, on certain subjects, especially things that are semi-related to planning and zoning. But this is,
Yeah, we really didn't make
Yeah.
a concerted effort to send it out to the townships because the percentage stuff, the only thing that's changing in there is the definition of abandoned pit, and that the money not only can be used to restore abandoned pit, it can be used for other resource projects, you know, runoff stuff.
well, and that's to that point, Madam Chair. The substance, the ordinance itself didn't change a lot. We had a little bit more description from what can be how the funds can be used from the reserve fund was probably the biggest change to it. A lot of the ordinance itself is just saying that we will operate under state statute as far as the gravel tax goes, in which, to that point, we all agree that there's some inequities with that there needs to be some changes there. So. But I think it's a good point there, though. I think I'll be more vigilant in the future if we would have things that are more substantial changes, that we get the townships at least have an opportunity to weigh in on it.
Yep, good point, thank you. Anyone else from the public that would like to speak?
Thanks for letting us speak. My name is Fred Bunk. I've been a gravel hauler in Wright County for 51 years. And I was on the first board when we talked about gravel tax with the old commissioners, McAlpin, and we threw it down the first time it come around because they agreed that Wright County and its townships are the biggest users of gravel. And that is a fact yet today, that Wright County uses more or pays more gravel tax than anybody. It's, look at your buildings you have here. Every yard of concrete you had, you paid gravel tax. Every yard of blacktop you had, you paid gravel tax. So I wish Virgil was here to know, I don't know what the final figure was that Wright County took in last year. But you paid probably 50 to 70% of the gravel tax yourself. And the townships did too. I don't mind paying gravel tax. I paid it since it started out of my own pocket. I never charged my customers for it. I just pay it. But the gravel tax is fine, but it's not fair. And you said that just a little while ago. There's 4 townships that do not get gravel tax: Albion, Woodland, Maple Lake, and Chatham. Southside Township, since this has started, has almost collected $1 million out of gravel tax. Is it fair? Do you think, you 5, do you think this is fair that Albion, Chatham, Woodland, Maple Lake pays their gravel tax and it goes to Southside? Or the other ones that have a lot of pits? These people don't have any pits. This is true. But the traffic comes down their township roads just like anybody else's. School buses, garbage trucks, lumber trucks, farmers, they all get used the same. Whichever township you're in, they all get used the same. But they don't get any help, these 4 townships, from the gravel tax, but yet they pay it. That's not fair. You said that. It's not fair. And you are the ones that allocate this money, I'm assuming. Why does the state have anything to say about that? And you commissioners really have some power here. I would think that you should be able to at least give their money back that they paid in for gravel tax. It's not fair. It's not a fair tax.
Yeah.
And I think you've got to realize that.
Yeah,
Why should these 4 townships not get anything back, yet pay in? That's my point.
yeah, and I appreciate that, Fred. It's state statute, another one of the state statutes that definitely needs to be updated, changed, because they're using these roads now. We know that. We know that.
But do you realize how much of this gravel tax that you pay? The county, do you realize how much that you pay yourself? So it's the government taking it out of this pocket and putting it in this pocket. Doesn't seem to make a lot of sense to me.
If it was just a county ordinance, and that we had complete control over it, it could be written differently, but we need to work with the legislature and get that updated.
Well, you'll run into a block wall there, I'm assuming, working with the state. But does every county in Minnesota pay gravel tax?
Madam Chair, they would have, if they chose to enact the gravel tax, the counties have the ability to say yes or no to enacting the gravel tax within their community. No, Madam Chair, the gravel tax is not far from perfect. It was really a mechanism to take the municipal money and county money and basically pay back to the townships that were being damaged at the time. Now, we all know that everybody's damaged, whether it was mined there or not. Mining maybe has a slight bit more of hauling on it than a non-mining county, but it's definitely not all or none, right? But the biggest thing that we really need to get the gravel tax looked at is we really need Matt to step up and the townships to really tell Matt that, this is something that needs to be reviewed. It hasn't been reviewed in decades. So, and that's a big thing that I would encourage all of you is to get Matt to step up, because then us from a county perspective can partner with AMC and really get the legislator to take some look at the gravel tax. And does this language still make sense today?
Right.
All I ask is make it fair. That's all I ask. I don't mind paying it, and I don't think they mind paying it. Just make it fair.
Yeah, thank you, appreciate that.
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Ketchmark?
since we have the legislative update with the legislatures, could we add this to the list
Sure,
of a point of interest by Wright County and the board?
sure.
You got it spelled out. It looks like statute 111.006, distribution of revenues. And I think that pretty much sums it up, sub 1 through 4. And give them a copy ahead of time, let them know, so that they're aware of it when they come. And then we could send it that way.
All right, is there anyone else from the public that would like to speak? Anyone else from the public that would like to speak? Anyone else from the public that would like to speak? Hearing none, we'll close the public comments and bring it back up to the board. So Commissioner Ketchmark, you have that recommendation to add that to our legislative discussions?
Right, that particular statute on distribution of revenues for the gravel tax. And then the second recommendation is for designated staff to figure out a standard operating procedure for the aggregate importer / operator audit report and certification. Whatever random and legal method he can come up with for us going forward to follow up on the ordinance that we're dealing with here.
So those recommendations would actually be separate from the resolution that we have before us, correct? Attorney Kreiser? Yes. So. That would be correct. Mr. Matei?
Madam Chair, yes, that'd be correct.
All right, so we do have a resolution in front of us, and it is approving the summary language for publication of ordinance number 22-3, amending the Wright County Code of Ordinances, Article 1, Chapter 111, aggregate tax, removal tax. Whereas on November 1st, 2022, the Wright County Board of Commissioners adopted ordinance number 22-3, which amended the Wright County Code of Ordinances, Article 1, Chapter 111, aggregate removal tax. Whereas it is not practical to publish the entire text of the ordinance in the county's official newspaper, whereas Minnesota Statute 375-.51, subdivision 3 allows the publication of a summary of an ordinance instead of publishing the entire ordinance, and whereas the Wright County Board of Commissioners determines publication of a summary of the ordinance is sufficient to clearly inform the public of the intent and effect of the ordinance, and where to access the full text of the ordinance. Therefore, be it resolved that the Wright County Board of Commissioners hereby determines to publish the following summary language, which is thereby approved, in lieu of publishing the full text of the ordinance. So the purpose of this ordinance is to impose a production tax on the removal of aggregate from pits, quarries, or deposit located within Wright County, establishes report requirements, penalties, and provides for the distribution of funds collected under this ordinance pursuant to Minnesota Statute 29875. A copy of the full ordinance may be obtained by contacting the Wright County Auditor Treasurer and is available for public inspection in the Wright County Office of the Taxpayer Services. And be it finally resolved that the Wright County Clerk is hereby authorized and directed to publish the approved summary language set out above once in the county's official newspaper, place a copy of the full ordinance in the Planning and Zoning Office, place a copy of the full ordinance to the Office of Taxpayer Services, place a copy of the full ordinance at the Wright County Law Library, place a copy of the full ordinance in the Office of the County Auditor Treasurer, record a copy of the full ordinance in the Office of the County Recorder. Is there a motion to adopt this resolution?
I'll make that motion.
All right, motion made by Commissioner Lyden. Is there a second?
I'll second.
By Commissioner Ketchmark. All right, any more discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote. Commissioner Ketchmark.
Aye.
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 All right, resolution passes 5-0. Really appreciate everyone's comments, and,
Madam Chair, I think we also need action on the ordinance itself, 22-3.
all right.
That's not a resolution, just a regular.
That would, Madam Chair, Commissioner Dahlheiten, that would be correct. That'd just be a regular motion
Okay,
to approve 22-3.
okay.
I'll make a motion to approve 22-3
All right,
ordinance.
I'll second.
motion by Commissioner Delisle, second by Commissioner Ketchmark. Discussion, hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, the motion passes. Commissioner Ketchmark, you had those recommendations that you had made.
Right. Well, to refer the distribution of revenue statute to the legislators for our update meeting coming up. And then for the staff designee, presumably the auditor treasurer, to come up with a standard operating procedure for doing the operator audit report and certification in a legal and random manner.
All right, and you make that motion?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second to that motion?
Yeah, I'll second it.
All right,
But discussion, do
Yep.
we need to have a motion for this sort of stuff? It almost sounds like it's something we just task
Direct
individuals
staff
You could direct
to,
staff.
yeah.
to do. You know, and the legislative stuff we'll be talking about next week. I'm
We
just
will.
wondering if it's even necessary.
I was kind of following Madam
Yeah.
Chair's lead, but
I just thought we'd make this motion, but yeah, if it's
No,
not
that-
necessary, Attorney Kreiser, what do you think?
Madam Chair, this comes down to board policy and how you want to run the meeting.
Well, as long as we've got the motion and the second by Commissioner Ketchmark, we'll have discussion. No more discussion, all in favor?
I,
All right, that's legal. Is there anything else? We've already done our committee updates and got through the rest of the agenda. Is there anything else that needs to come before the board? All right, hearing none, we're adjourned at 9:56. Thanks, everybody.